Okay, who will be the next governors in Virginia and New Jersey? We're going to start in Virginia, where it's a very clear choice. We have Winsome Earl Sears versus Abigail Spanberger. Neither one went through a long, messy primary. Winsome Earl Sears was the lieutenant governor under Glenn Youngkin, who was term limited and ineligible to run for re-election this year. And Abigail Spanberger is a former Democratic congresswoman who announced her candidacy in 2023 and was really not challenged in any type of Democratic primary. Winsome Earl Sears was barely challenged, but won convincingly. And now these two are going to face off in November. Super interesting election because whoever wins this will be declared the first female governor of Virginia. And if Winsome Earl Sears happens to win, she will be the first black female governor in the United States' history. So congrats to these two ladies on that accomplishment. Virginia has definitely been a left-leaning state as of late, and it used to be a swing state. That will be a future video, so look out for that one. But this is an important election because it's the first major one after 2024, in which we saw a new president elected, and it is before the 2026 midterms, so it can be a good test for us to see if the country has continued to move further to the right, as it did in the 2024 general election, or if it has balanced itself out and moved more to the middle and more to the left. Super interesting from that perspective. Glenn Youngkin is term limited. It was kind of a shock when he won in 2021. Pretty popular. People even thought maybe he would run for president in 2024 as a Republican. Youngkin is eligible to run another time. You just can't serve 2 consecutive terms in Virginia. So that is what brought us to these two lovely ladies running against each other. And Virginia is such an interesting state because if we look at this little fact right here, I'll read this aloud. With the exception of 2013, Virginia has elected a governor of the opposite party of the sitting president of the United States in every election since 1977. So what does that mean? What does that look like? Let's go to this chart I built to understand. So we have the general election year posted next to the gubernatorial election year. So in 1976, we had a general election, and then 77, we had a follow-up gubernatorial. We have the general election result, it went Democratic for the presidency. That was Jimmy Carter. But Virginia went Republican the next year, and that's the kind of the cadence and the logic going forward on this first row. Here I have labeled went the opposite, which of course it did not in 2013, so I have not opposite. And then down below is the result of Virginia in that election. So for example, in 2024, we had Trump win in the general, so it's Republican. It's to be determined what happens here, but the state went Democratic overall. So if we kind of look at the trends here with Virginia, that can help us get a sense of maybe how we should predict this and how we should think about predicting it going forward. So as you can see, you had Democrat, Republican, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Democrat. It does follow the trend. So what would be up if you were following the trend excluding 2013? Well, it would be Democrat, which is very fascinating and interesting of itself. And as you can see, it doesn't really matter what Virginia votes because if you look here in 2008, they voted Democrat in the general election. The election went Democrat, but they still elected a Republican governor afterwards. And then similarly in say the year 2000, general election Republican, Virginia elected a Democratic governor even after going Republican in that general election. So it doesn't really mean anything what happened here because as we can see, it's not like the state will always follow that. And that is so interesting how states will be different just a year later. 4 years later makes a lot of sense, but just a year later is very fascinating. So if we followed this trend, and again, it was broken in 2012 and 13, we should get a Democrat in Virginia in 2025. And that would mean that maybe for the midterms, because it precedes the midterms, that we would see maybe a blue wave or at least moving more to the middle because the country as a whole in the general election went about 4 points to the right. So again, here is a look at our candidates. They stand on different issues. It's been an interesting ride. I think that Winsome Earl Sears will have a good chance because of the endorsement of Glenn Youngkin, but I think Spanberger is a recognizable name. I knew who Winsome Earle-Sears was just because I've researched Glenn Youngkin in Virginia before, but I'm not sure if she's really a household name. Whereas Spanberger, I actually knew that name, and in some of the articles I read, people talked about maybe that would be an advantage for Spanberger. But in general, one of the biggest things I've heard is that because of maybe tariffs, and because in Northern Virginia, specifically close to D.C., right, you could see some federal workers who might have been laid off under the Trump administration saying, hey, we're going to start voting more Democratic. So that's just a thought. It's just an opinion that's out there. Polls have this pretty close. A lot of lean Democrat, as you can see here. Let's look at the polling here. Again, close. You have some undecided. This is in polling for the primary. Let's see the general election. Lean Democrat, tilt Democrat, lean Democrat. So, again, it looks pretty tight. We see some here where you see like a neck and neck here. A big margin here. Again, undecided. I think as we get closer to that election, which is 6 months away, people will start familiarizing themselves with the candidates and maybe have more an opinion. Definitely something we will continue to look at. This is not the first video for this subject matter. We will be doing plenty more, and obviously we'll cover in November when it gets here. But polls seem to be that it's kind of close. Just looking at this, I would probably lean Spanberger, right? If we go to endorsements-wise, which I think is always interesting, so you can see Tim Kaine, former vice president candidate for Hillary Clinton. I think that's a pretty big endorsement for Spanberger. If we can go down, looks like we don't see any endorsements for Winsome Sears, which is odd. But I'm sure she's been endorsed by Glenn Youngkin. Yep. Kind of a pretty small list there. So that might not look so hot there for Winsome Earle-Sears right off the bat if Spanberger has all these endorsements. I like to look at Kalshi, Polymarket, PredictIt. I looked at PredictIt. It was the same as Kalshi, which I will show you now. A lot of the money is on Democratic candidate Abigail Spanberger, which makes a lot of sense because of Virginia being liberal, being more Democratic as of late, not really a swing state anymore. Maybe some of the tariffs in federal workers swinging left, and then also if it continues with the trend of flipping after the general election. But again, only a little bit of money bet. I wouldn't be surprised if this got near $1 million by the time the actual election rolled around. But as of right now, odds could change. It looks like our Democratic candidate, Abigail Spanberger, has a pretty convincing margin right now in terms of a lead in polls and in terms of the betting markets. But we will continue to monitor this. It's extremely interesting. It's important. It was very important, if you remember, back in 2021 when Youngkin won that. It was a close race, and he was able to pull it off against Terry McAuliffe, who was a former leader of the DNC, was a former governor of Virginia. And as you can see here, Youngkin won by a little under 2 points. So it can be done that we can have super tight and close elections in Virginia, which is always very interesting. If we cycle back through here, it's been a little bit more Democrat controlled, as you can see, back-to-back Democratic wins there. A big margin of victory here. You want the map to look more like this if you're Winsome Earle-Sears. Try to get more towards that. But there will be more breakdowns of Virginia in the future. We just wanted to talk about it first because it's 6 months out. We have two candidates that are actually going against each other. We know a lot about this election, and we will be monitoring this one fiercely over the next 6 months. Let's transition into the New Jersey election, which is a bit more complicated because, whoa, we don't have any faces there. Governor Phil Murphy right here, term limited, cannot seek re-election to a third consecutive term in office. Phil Murphy was pretty notable as governor of New Jersey. I think a lot of people knew about Phil Murphy, but he's, of course, term limited. So what's happening here is we have some declared candidates in the Democrat side, Democratic primary here. Notable name, Cory Booker, declined. Cory Booker, you could see him running for president in 2028 maybe. It says here that he's running for re-election in 2026 as a senator. He's been very notable, been very famous in the news for probably going on 10 years now. So interesting to see his name decline. But as you can see here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candidates in the Democratic primary. And if we scroll down to the Republican primary, we've got a healthy amount of candidates too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will give a little bit of a, let's go to polling. So as you can see here, Jack Ciattarelli, hope I'm saying that right. Someone correct me in the comments if I'm not saying it right, please. Holds a pretty healthy lead. The Democratic candidates, I will shift to this article. This article is from Newsweek, and I got a spoiler for you guys. I think this is the matchup we're going to see. We will cover this one again when June 10th, June 11th rolls around to talk about the results, but I think this is what you're going to see. I mean, this is literally the picture in Newsweek. These are the two leading candidates right now. Mr. Ciattarelli, he's the Republican candidate, and Mikey Sherrill, the Democratic candidate. I could really see those two running against each other. Now, if we go into the polling, here is a Rutgers University poll, so I think that's pretty reliable. Of course, a college in New Jersey. As you can see, it's pretty split. Mikey's getting 17% of the vote to 12% to 10%, and they're all kind of tied towards the bottom. So it's really anyone's race, but pretty healthy margin for her here. I think that it's safe to say she's the front runner right now. She has the best odds, but we will keep an eye out. Jersey City Mayor Steve Fulop has got some pretty good endorsements up his sleeve. He's got a little bit more of national recognition lately. He's probably looking like he's in a good spot. I believe the Newark mayor, Ras Baraka, was actually just arrested. So I don't know if that's going to hurt or help his candidacy, but he's certainly been in the news, and I wonder what that'll do for the race. Again, we'll tune in June 10th and 11th to see what actually happens. And then if you scroll down to the Republican, it looks like J.D. Vance versus the field of 2028 in the Republican primary, which if you haven't checked out that video, I'll have that one linked in the description along with the Democratic 2028 race. But yeah, Ciattarelli with a very comfortable margin here over the next possible candidate. And something that's very interesting here is if you look back in 2021, and this could have been really some foreshadowing. New Jersey in 2021 went by 3 points to Phil Murphy over Jack Ciattarelli. So I think that because he's a familiar candidate, he barely lost the state by 3 points before. Ciattarelli has got kind of a lot of momentum going into 2025 as, hey, we know this face. He put up a really good fight against Phil Murphy, who was an incumbent in a Democratic state like New Jersey. Super interesting. So in 2017, Murphy won by basically a landslide, 56 to 41%. And then in 2021, the margin was cut down quite a bit. This should have been foreshadowing to 2024, where New Jersey went significantly more to the right in the general presidential election. And it's very interesting to see, because if it continues this trend, then you'd think in 2025, Mr. Jack here would be able to win probably by a decent margin. But I'm not exactly sure if that will be the case. New Jersey is important because we have another factoid right here, kind of like Virginia. Republicans have not won a statewide election in New Jersey since Chris Christie's landslide victory in the 2013 gubernatorial election. But the recent statewide elections have been notably competitive. Again, what we just talked about. But here's the factoid. With the exception of 2021, New Jersey has elected a governor of the opposite party of the sitting president of the United States in every election since 1989. So super, super similar to Virginia in that regard. Let's go look at the chart to see that breakdown. Again, you have the general election year here. You have the governor's race here. And we have the results. So as you can see, it went the same. It was not opposite. Now, what's interesting here, Virginia, we didn't have a chance to have this incumbent row because you can't have an incumbent in Virginia. They can't run 2 consecutive terms. But the 2 times in the last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 elections, the 2 times that it didn't go opposite was when an incumbent won. In 2024, 2025, there is not an incumbent on the ballot. Phil Murphy cannot run again. He doesn't have that familiarity. So even if Mikey Sherrill wins, she'd be going up against someone in the Republican Party that's not an incumbent, and she's not an incumbent. So part of me thinks there's probably a pretty good chance that this flips to red and kind of continues the same trend. It might be a little bit of a boring prediction for now to say that's what's going to happen. But I will give you one prediction that I think Mikey Sherrill will be that nominee. Looking at this graph some more, as you can see, here's the election results in the state of New Jersey. It's went Democrat for quite a long time, but that still hasn't prevented them from electing Republican governors, which is super interesting because they could do that this year. I am predicting now, 6 months out, I think we're going to see a Republican governor in New Jersey. Please let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree. Love to hear the discourse. But I am not popular in that opinion because if you go to Kalshi, a little better odds for me than Virginia, but 85 to 18 there. So the betting markets right now, again, only $160,000 bet. There might be $1 million or $1.5 million bet by November. But the betting markets right now are not suggesting what I'm suggesting, so that's interesting. My opinion might be fluid and might change over the next 6 months. But I just think there's a chance for the trend to follow. I think that New Jersey had such a fierce shift to the right. And I think that Jack Ciattarelli's familiarity from the 2021 election will definitely help him. I think that the Democratic Party's odds might go up on here if Mikey Sherrill is elected, because I think she probably has the best odds to beat Ciattarelli. But if she doesn't get elected and kind of a dark horse candidate gets the nod, maybe like a Sean Spiller or something, or a Steve Sweeney, I wouldn't be surprised if Ciattarelli's odds shot up. So my two predictions for now, we'll see how we are. We're a couple weeks out, making a big prediction, I guess. Probably the first real big prediction of the channel. I think you're going to see Ciattarelli win his primary, and I think you're going to see Mikey Sherrill. We will evaluate that. We will see if I'm right or wrong in a couple of weeks. I hope I at least get one of them correct. It'd be great if I got both of them correct. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. I think these will be a great litmus test to see where the country is a year from electing Donald Trump and a year before the 2026 midterms. I think it'll be super interesting to follow. I will do a video on the New Jersey governor race once the primary results come in. So stay tuned for that and look out for that. And thank you for watching, everyone.